Good afternoon. I'm Campbell McCrary. I'm a Vice President, Capital Markets at Amvest Capital in New York. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Tectonic Metals. Tectonic trades on the venture as TECT and on the OTCQB as TETOF. Hope you'll enjoy today's program. It'll also be available in replay mode. Feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of GoToWebinar or simply email them in. We truly would love to get your questions and we'll ask them in real time. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. All important disclaimer, this call is for informational purposes only. So we have with us today Tony Reda, founder, president, and CEO of Tectonic, one of the key members of the Tectonic team who were involved in Kaminak Gold, which sold the Yukon's Coffee Gold project, Gold Corp, $520 million Canadian in 2016. Tony was pivotal in orchestrating capital raises and monetizing Kaminak's other projects. As VP Corp Dev for Kaminak, he executed the company's strategic planning, financing, business development, and marketing while overseeing the public relations and IR of the company. Following the formal presentations, members of Amvest Capital will ask questions of management. We also look forward to any questions that you will send in. So we really would love to hear from the audience. Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just jump in, bud.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining today and allowing me to tell you a bit more about Tectonic Metals. I am one of the founders. I'll speak about the other founders in the subsequent slides here. Our shift in the game really started as an idea at the moment we decided to collaborate together post acquisition of Kaminak. It embodied about doing something different in the exploration mining space. We wanted to build a company around the most important asset. And guess what? It's not a project, it's the people. So we handpicked each individual to participate in Tectonic on the board side, on the founder side, on the management side. I was instrumental in picking each individual, and those individuals weren't selected because they're my best friends. They were selected given their experience, the credibility that they brought, what they accomplished in their careers, and what they could potentially teach me in my endeavor as the first time being a CEO of a public company. I think we were successful in recruiting them. We're punching above our weight class, I think, when it comes to the team, and I'm quite honored and privileged to have them by my side. That was one element of the shift in the game. Is like, let's start with the most critical piece of creating value. The next thing was not, again, it wasn't a project. It was starting with a business model. You know, what's going to govern and guide us as a company? What are we trying to achieve? Let's start with the end in mind and reverse engineer the building of that. And the end is finding a mine. That's what we're out here to do. And how can we do it differently and better than what we did at Kaminak, and then what our predecessors, what our peers are doing? You know, how can we bring a breath of fresh air to the space? And one thing that we tackled was actually, as part of the business model, was establishing core values, a vision, a purpose, if you will, as well. And in addition to that, we tackled Alaska as sort of the next frontier that we wanted to sink our teeth in. Our projects are based in Alaska, but we do look elsewhere in North America, in Canada, for other opportunities. But right now we have 4 projects based in Alaska. And the reason why we chose to go to Alaska was there was a few different reasons. One of them was that we wanted to work with the native corporations of Alaska. In Alaska, there's different types of land ownership. There's state land, federal land, private owned land, and there's also native owned land. And working on native owned land, providing that the native corporation is pro-business, pro-mining, we saw that as an accretive opportunity where we can all collaborate and work together and pull on that one single lever, and that's finding a mine. So we've done that. The other thing that Alaska offers is elephant-sized deposits in a first world jurisdiction. It's kind of been forgotten, I think, over the last little while here. But as of late being the last few years, we've had several producers move into the state. Last year alone, 5 new producers moved into the state. And everyone's got a low appetite for risk, including ourselves. And when you want to find sort of these tier 1 style deposits, there's no better place to look at Alaska. There's great infrastructure, great opportunity, and the state is wide open. So that's a bit about the backdrop, the inception, the shift in the game, which I'll continually talk about throughout this presentation. And I'll also talk about some of our projects, some of the potential catalysts going forward, and what we've achieved in the short little while that we've been public, and also what to expect in the next upcoming months. We do trade on the OTCQB and also on the TSX Venture. The symbols are there. There is a Q&A component also at the end of the presentation. I look forward to speaking with you and addressing your questions. It definitely is one of the highlights of these things. Instead of hearing me pontificate for 20, 30 minutes, just how great we are. I'm going to keep this somewhat short and concise, and then look forward to the Q&A component. We do have a forward-looking statement and National Instrument 43-101 compliance slide. So please take the time to read that at your convenience prior to making any sort of investment decision. It is located on our website. I mentioned a bit about the shift in the game, and we'll delve a bit deeper into that. Building a company around a team, then a business model. The business model embraces risk. It looks at opportunities on where companies typically shy away from them. We sort of tackle them head on. The business model is also focused on discovery and working with other partners. And one of those partners is our native corporation that we've partnered up with. They're called Doyon Limited. They're one of the largest native regional corporations in Alaska. And when I say the largest, they're the largest in land size, just over, I believe, 19 million acres. And they're also one of the largest with shareholders. In addition to being one of the largest landholders in Alaska, they're one of the largest private landholders in the United States. And I mentioned earlier the benefits of working on native-owned land. We've taken that partnership into and transitioned it earlier this year during the midst of the COVID outbreak, the pandemic, and invited them to be shareholders in our company. They accepted, and they made a strategic investment in our company, and they now sit at about 16% ownership in Tectonic on a partially diluted basis. We're quite honored by that investment and happy and delighted to have them by our side. I don't think there's too many junior mining companies that actually have Indigenous shareholders. That just further exemplifies our commitment to collaboratively working together on our projects that are situated on native-owned land. And part of our business model, we've actually formed exploration right through to production, reclamation, royalties. Everything's all encompassed in these agreements. Yes, these projects are early stage or discovery stage, but we wanted to define the goalposts right at the onsets to make the process more streamlined. One of the other unique things that we've done, again, part of our business model, is we've incorporated elements of ESG and CSR into these agreements. So for example, we engage early. We support archaeological and heritage studies. We contribute to scholarships to Doyon's nonprofit foundation. We hire locally. We also give preferential rights to Doyon subsidiaries or companies. These are all Indigenous companies and organizations. So these agreements are not just about finding a mine, but they're also about bringing benefits to the communities in which we work and operate in, and also looking at the environmental side and the heritage and the archaeological side of things as well. We're quite honored about those agreements, and we've now applied this template to a few other project acquisitions that we've announced earlier this year on Doyon land once again. We have executed 2 drill programs this year. This was, call it quote unquote, a tough year with the pandemic, but as far as Tectonic is concerned, we've actually had one of our stellar years when it comes to executing programs and raising capital and also delivering results. We've raised $7 million this year, and executed 2 drill programs and 4 surface exploration programs. We've acquired new projects. So by and far, we've, I think, surpassed our expectations. If we're sitting here in March and said, Tony, where do you expect to be? I'm quite happy and pleased with the outcome that we've produced. And the year's not over yet. We have more results coming down the pipeline. These are drill results. We have soil results, geophysical results, and we're also looking at some new acquisitions, which is part of our business model as well. Going back to the team, the core foundation that we built Tectonic on, I mentioned a lot of us came from Kaminak Gold Corporation, where we were part of the acquisition of the Coffee Gold project. The first drill hole drilled on that project, Rob Carpenter was the CEO at that time, and we took coffee from moose pasture to 5 million plus ounces. We produced a PEA followed by a bankable feasibility study. We were dipping our toe in the permitting front. We raised $165 million to fund that development of that project, and we were acquired in 2016 by Goldcorp, now Newmont. Ira Thomas was the former CEO. Rob was the initial CEO. Ira followed him in 2013. Myself, I was there for the whole entire tenure of Kaminak. When I said we were punching above our weight class, yes, Ira, Rob are very formidable, well-known and respected geologists in our industry, but we were also able to attract Kurt Freeman. And Kurt Freeman is a resident of Alaska. More importantly, or just as importantly, he's a certified professional geologist and is recognized as one of the leading explorationists or mine finders, if you will, in the state. He's got 40 plus years experience. He's critical to us because we work obviously in Alaska, and having his breadth of knowledge and experience and relationships with the regulators, the government, the local indigenous people is invaluable. In addition to Kurt, we've brought on Mel Benson, who, aside from sitting on our board, sits on the board of Suncor Energy, Canada's largest oil and gas company. It sits at about $50 billion market cap last I checked. So we're quite humbled to have a gentleman of that caliber on our board. Furthermore, Mel's also in the Indigenous Hall of Fame in Canada here. Very respected and well regarded for his philanthropic efforts and also his negotiations between the government, federal and local, between the government and Indigenous groups, and also companies such as Suncor. A little bit more about the team, if I may. We've also brought in Michael or Mick Roper, who just announced his retirement with Agnico Eagle. This is his first directorship, and so he was with Agnico for about 15 years. And I would like to also highlight a former Kaminak VP that was that I worked alongside with, and that's Alison Rippon Armstrong. The reason why I mention her is, she has numerous accolades and awards, been involved in the permitting of 9 mines in northern Canada. But what's interesting about Alison is that she's an environmental biologist by trade, and her passion lies with the environment. She also has a passion for mining, and her ability to bridge the two and find compromise or wins for both sides is sort of her knack. She also, it was pivotal working with the Indigenous people in Yukon and also abroad in northern Canada, and then also in forming the initial relationships in Alaska. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm quite honored to have these individuals beside me. They provide guidance. Our team owns about 29% on a partially diluted basis of our company. So our ownership is not predicated on options or things of that nature. It's predicated on actual ownership that we bought from the initial low levels right through to 35 cents. And we've also bought in the open market many times, and we will continue to support this company that we believe in. We sit with 90 million shares outstanding. As I mentioned, Doyon is the single largest shareholder of our company. And then we have other resource-focused funds on the registry that I would also say are respected. So when it comes, if you look at the breakdown of the 90 million, there isn't a huge public float out there. And the other thing to note about the public float is that the majority of our shareholders and are typically at the 20 cent or a 35-cent price point, because that's where the capital raises have been for the last 2 years. Now, I mentioned the 2 projects that we drilled this year. The first one was TIBES, and it's located in the GOODPASTER mining district. The GOODPASTER district is anchored by the Pogo mine, which is owned and operated by Northern Star Resources. Earlier this year, they produced a global resource estimate of just north of 6 million ounces of gold at an average head grade of 10 grams per ton. It's the only mine in the district. But you can also see their land package here in purple. They've now acquired ground that abuts our property. We moved into this district in 2017. It actually was our first acquisition. TIBES was previously explored in the mid-90s, and then once again in the sort of 2008, 9, and 10. But in the mid-90s, it actually was discovered by the same people or company that discovered Pogo. It shares many similarities to the Pogo deposits. Geochemically and structurally, a lot of the zones are pretty much identical when it comes to geochemistry and structure. We were fascinated by the fact that there was no one else really in the district. You have this high-grade gold operating mine, and there was no one to be seen. We've now increased our land positions, but with Carey Creek, Mount Harper, and Maple Leaf. What I would point out is that Carey Creek is one of those new acquisitions announced earlier this year that is situated on native-owned land, or in other words, Doyon land. And TIBES is situated on state land. We're probably one of the few companies that have now actually married native-owned land with state land. And we're all working towards that common goal of finding a mine, whether it's on TIBES or Carey Creek. It will be a win for all parties if and when that happens. We have power, we have a highway nearby, we have an active mill that's been in operation for many years now. I think it's about 10, 12 years that Pogo's been in operation, and we're relatively close. So this is now TIBES proper that we're looking at, and you can see in the legend here, and then also on the map, the hot geochemistry, whether it's in soils or rock. There's no shortage of targets and zones, and there's also no shortage of high-grade gold. You can see every magenta triangle is greater than 5 grams per ton as far as a rock sample is concerned. Graylead was the initial zone that was discovered by the same people that discovered Pogo, 28 grams or 5.4 meters. They drilled that zone only down to about 120 meters vertical, and they drilled it in a fan-like pattern, trying to find a low-angle vein. Pogo was discovered as a low-angle vein, and that's the only type of vein that they mined up until 2013. No one had this property in 2013. It was dropped and was sitting dormant. I mentioned the low-angle vein because in 2013, the operators of Pogo announced to the world that they actually hit a high-angle vein, and the high-angle veins have been part of their this part of the updated Pogo geological model, and they've been mining both sets of vein from 2013 onward. Well, Graylead sits in a high-angle vein, and the other reason why I'm mentioning this is because this year we've actually mapped low-angle thrust faults or potential where there could be low-angle veins. And this is predominantly on the western portion of the property. So what we've done this year, in addition to drilling, is we've extended the soil grid, targeting the same rock unit that hosts Pogo, and also targeting potential areas where we could have low-angle veins. Now that was part one. Part two of that was drill testing Michigan, Lower Trench, and Wolverine this year. Now Michigan was the highlight last year. We only put 4 holes into this zone, and we drilled 6 grams over 29 meters was the highlight hole. So that's this zone right here. This year we drilled about 10, I think actually, yeah, 10 more holes, and the highlight being 6 grams over 9, which included 19 grams over 3 meters. Now what we observed with our televiewer downhole is that we were now observing low angle features. And that's exciting, because when we look at what's controlling the high grade mineralization, we believe that it's the interplay between high angle veins and low angle veins, and where they intersect, we get a blowout in grade and a blowout in width. We've now taken that one step further. We just completed an IP survey, so that's a geophysical survey, to help delineate, demonstrate, or map out those intersections, and we're waiting on those results. We're going to take those results, marry it with the mineralization and drilling, and if we see what we are hoping to see, we'll follow that up with diamond drilling. Again, that interplay is key at Pogo, and it's now being uncovered for pretty much the first time on our property. So Lower Trench was another area that we drilled this year, 10 grams over 3 being one of the highlights. We believe that Lower Trench was an extension of Michigan and faulted off. And then we've also drilled Wolverine, which is the largest soil anomaly on the property. Unfortunately, we did not hit in this zone. We targeted the top of the ridge top and weren't successful in explaining this massive golden soil anomaly. It doesn't mean we've killed it. We just don't understand, or we haven't found the bedrock source of that mineralization. So there's going to be wins and there's going to be losses, and that's the reality we have to face. But what I can tell you is that every drill program Tectonic has ever executed, we have found gold. So we're pretty happy about that outcome, and we're going to continue to push that forward. All 11 holes at Michigan hit mineralization. This is now the Michigan zone itself. So we have yet to actually miss at Michigan. And we have, again, no shortage of high-grade gold, whether it's the 2019 drill here, 6 grams. We have our 2020 hole, 12 grams, 5 grams over here on the bottom right, 19 grams. And then we also have this historical hole, 57 grams, 7 grams, and 3 grams roughly, sorry, 2.6 grams roughly, over 9 meters, which ended in mineralization at a 250-meter vertical depth. The previous explorer in 2011 shut that hole down in mineralization. So we have evidence to support there is gold at depth, and at a very significant depth. All of our drilling has been shallow. Again, what's next for this property? We have soil results from the gneissic rocks, or that new rock unit that Pogo is hosted in. We have the IP geophysical survey, and over Michigan here as well, with the hope that it's going to delineate that interplay between high angle and low angle. So stay tuned for more news there. We'll also have news from the surrounding properties in the GOODPASTER district from Carey Creek, Maple Leaf, and Mount Harper. And Maple Leaf, a quick note about that is that when Pogo was discovered, there was a huge staking spree, or a good old-fashioned area play in the area. One of the individuals that led that charge was Rob McEwen. He did it through a private entity, and that ended up getting M&A'd or formed part of Rubicon. But the point being, from our perspective, is that they collected a massive multi-million-dollar data set in that area. We were earlier this year, we were thankful that we were able to purchase that data set, and we've now applied it to the entire district. And that's the Maple Leaf is one of the projects that they targeted. So we're pretty excited. We were very excited to get there this year, do some mapping and prospecting. So stay tuned for some more results from those properties as well. The other property that we drilled this year is situated once again on native-owned land. We've de-risked the project by having a production agreement on this asset right at the onset. We were intrigued by this asset because it's one of the few remaining greenstone belts in North America that hasn't been fully exploited. If you're trying to find a multi-million-ounce gold district, well, one of the top 3 places you look is greenstone belts, and that has been a very successful endeavor for many companies here in North America, whether it's the Abitibi, Meliadine, Meadowbank, greenstone belts in Ontario as well. They've all produced projects with multiple head frames. So that's one of the reasons why we love this project. The second one, as I mentioned, was it's on native-owned land. The third was that there's a lot of untapped potential. These ridge and spur anomalies warrant follow-up. They have the potential to turn into this flume trend, which is about 8 kilometers long. We're looking at a 40-kilometer long belt here, different styles of mineralization. Those are box ticking exercises when you're trying to find a robust mineralizing system. We have high-grade gold at Flanders up to 187 grams per ton in historical diamond drilling. We wanted to step back this year, and well, actually since acquiring this, which was actually last year. So we've only worked this property in 2 seasons. So again, going back to that business model and how do we approach project generation, how do we approach risk management, ESG, trying to find that next 5 to 10 million ounce gold system, what do we do? Well, we first targeted native owned lands. Second thing we did, we formed a partnership, went digging through their database, plucked this asset, formed an exploration to production agreement that encompasses scholarship, early engagement, local hiring, archaeology studies. We then went in with a different mindset. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different outcome. Well, we ask ourselves this question in everything we do, like, okay, what can we do differently? So we went in there with a new geological thinking, a new model that hasn't been applied to this property, and that's a high-grade shear zone model. We're like, let's not go after every shiny object. Let's step back, apply a different model, and also look at what's driving the fluids, what's controlling the grade. So last year we flew an airborne survey, a Midas magnetic geophysical survey, to map out these different rock contacts. The next thing we did is we brought in a power auger soil sampling tool, which I believe trumps the traditional tool of shovel sampling, which is shown here on slide 11. So these gray dots are dead shovel samples. Shovel samples aren't always the best tool when it comes to dealing with the north. There's permafrost. There's also just getting tired. You know, it's quite a laborious exercise. When you're using a power auger soil sampling tool, you got an 8-foot rod flight. It's powered. You hammer it down and you collect the sample. So that was the other thing that we brought that was different. We also brought in a new tool into Alaska, and it's called a geoprobe, which is a top of bedrock sampling tool. And that goes up to 40 feet deep. Wherever that bedrock interface is, it stops and collects a sample. And the final thing that we brought in was a track-mounted rab drill, which we did this year. But I'll draw your attention to this 325 parts per billion soil anomaly in permafrost, and I'll show you the aftermath when we applied our tools. So you can see here we have top of bedrock anomalies and soil anomalies over 300 meters in length. We've drill tested this zone here. We've also drill tested East Flanders and Deep Creek. We've then took our drill about 6 kilometers away, and we stepped out on this 1997 drill hole of 1.34 grams or 44 meters. We then stepped out at the flume zone, and then we decided to, you know what, if this black dashed line represents a rock contact, if there's mineralization here at flume and then at bonanza, well, there's a good chance that entire contact is carrying fluid. So we tackled this area here. So just to give you a sense of scale, you know, from here to here, you're looking at almost 4 or 5 kilometers in length. So if this contact is mineralized for that whole extent, and we don't know the answer to that question just yet, we now are sitting on a pretty scalable opportunity, and we're, you know, the grade 2.7, 1.34. Well, let's see if there's any other high grade material in there. The same rationale applies to this area here. You know, if these contacts are carrying fluids, you know, is this the place we want to look? And you can see their drilling never really tested the contact here. These black lines represent the extent of historical drilling. So we have scale, and we also have grade up in here, you know, up to 187 grams per ton. We're like, well, so we're asking ourselves, why is this zone carrying that high grade? Why is this one carrying 12? Why is this one carrying 7.8? And where else do we need to look for high grade gold? So those were the 2 projects that we drilled this year. The surface programs were on Maple Leaf, Carey Creek, Mount Harper, and also on TIBES with a soil sampling campaign. We have the IP coming down the pipeline, some 70-mile drill results, some more soil and rock sampling results, and you know, keeping our eye open to, you know, what's next for Tectonic. We think we have some. We know we're going to be back this next year on these projects. There's enough sizzle to keep us engaged, and enough grade to keep us excited about, you know, potentially uncovering a scalable system. I think we're at the brink. You know, as I mentioned, 70 Mile, we've only done 2 seasons in there, and their first season of acquisition is really getting to know the property. This was our first year of drilling. Next year, we think we're going to come at it harder and bigger. Same thing applies with TIBES. We've only been there for 3 seasons, and I think with the uncovering of the map, low angle thrust faults, the interplay between high angle, low angle in Michigan, I think we're finally at the point where we're dialing into these zones. And when I say I think we are there, I want to emphasize that we have found gold 6 grams over 29 meters in our first ever drill campaign as a company. So we're finding gold every step of the way, but we're not here for the short-term prize. We're here for the long-term win. And when I say that, that's our thought process in actually building a team, not getting caught up in one project or one hot anomaly, raising a couple million, drilling it, missing, rolling back the company, and starting all over again. That's not our game plan. We're here to actually find a mine, do it ethically, responsibly, and with integrity, and make sure that endeavor benefits the communities in which we work and operate in. So with that being said, I will open the floor to any questions.
Excellent, thank you. So we had a few questions sent in. To start with, I guess, could you comment on your recent and current valuation and volume that's on people's minds?
Yes, thank you. I've been getting that question a lot, and trust me, I'm asking myself that question a lot as well. So, we can kind of go a little bit crazy here, trying to assess what's going on in the market. When I look at the trading, I see sometimes Morgan Stanley, I'm calling you out, whoever you are, computer generated selling, it looks like, 500 share lots, 1,000 share lots. So every 5 minutes, 500 shares, 500 shares. We've had days where, whether it was them or someone else, where, they're selling a total of $3,000. But they deflate the stock, and we're somewhat tightly held. So it's been very frustrating seeing our valuation get destroyed. What I can tell you for comfort is that the fundamentals is what I look at, and what allow me to sleep better at night is that we're bettering the fundamentals behind this company. Our ownership is that we've participated in every financing at 35 cents, 20 cents. We have a roster of quality shareholders. And we're probably we're chomping at the bit to get in the market. Unfortunately, we can't right now. But for whatever reason, tax loss selling, computer generated selling, I'm sympathetic, because as large ownership, I'm actually the single largest owner of Tectonic, and it's my entire life savings. So when I see a shareholder calls me and they're underwater, I'd like to remind them, and myself too, to, hey, you know what? The whole team is underwater, myself included. So, their losses are our losses, and our wins are their wins as well. So, I don't have anything else enlightening to say other than, it does look like computer generated selling. I'm going to speculate a bit of tax loss selling. Maybe we're shaking the trees and some loose leaves are falling here. But we're going to end the year with over $3 million in cash. We're in a strong financial position. We got great results. And 2021 is around the corner, and we're going to be back in the field as soon as we can.
Can you talk about just current cash and what's that latest figure again? And then plan for after you spent the money, and then of course you have considered a rights offering.
Yeah. So our cash position as of the last published financial was about 6.9 million. That did fund the program, so we've depleted that treasury a bit. So I can't quote definitively right now where we're at today's cash, nor should I. It's not really allowed per se, because I don't actually have updated financial numbers in front of me. But we are publishing our next financial statement in a couple of weeks here, so stay tuned. We are estimating that at the end of the year we'll have north of 3 million in cash. And would I consider a rights offering? Yeah, damn rights, I think I would.
Okay, excellent. Gabe, I'm going to.
We're pregnant. Sorry, Cam, just to kind of, well, why aren't you doing it? Well, the reason is that we are pregnant with assay results and more assays to come. So we want to clear the deck completely and then figure out how we move forward effectively. We don't have to raise capital. But giving shareholders a chance to average down might be something that that's crossed our desks.
All right, thank you. Gabe?
Hey, Tony. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of recent results, and then also maybe if you can answer first, when do you expect assays to come in? How many more batches are you going to be releasing to market? Or are you going to be just doing one more release? What are your thoughts around that?
Sure. So, we're subject to the lab and how they release their results. And I'm completely honest, we have actually rushed some assay results, and they were delayed significantly. We're talking like, over 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks. What we try to do as a company with every news release, you'll see complete transparency. So we do assay sheets, meter by meter or meter and a half by meter and a half assays. We put plan maps, cross sections. What I prefer to do is batch things up with context. And so sometimes they're done by zone, but we're not one to just do typically one hole, because I don't even know what it means. And how am I going to explain it to others if it's just one hole? So, in that same breath, sometimes the lab will just dump, you submit your rock chips or drill core to the lab, and you're expecting to get them staged, and all of a sudden you get 10 dumped in one night or on one weekend. So I would expect a fulsome news release to come out in regards to 70 Mile in the coming weeks. Soil results somewhat imminently here, and then the mapping and prospecting and IP survey staged out accordingly to when we get the data, and then also interpreting them, and then collating it in a meaningful manner so our shareholders and investors can understand and interpret them themselves. So I would say that, expect news right through into November.
Okay, great. Can we go to the slide that shows some of the recent drill results? I just want to talk about, if you don't mind sharing, how you categorize them in terms of, ore type or what do they mean to you? So what sort of knowledge did these results give you?
Okay, so the first area that we drilled was Michigan. And so we had this Rob 1102, which was a diamond hole. We actually have that drill core. We also have so that's this one. And this here is our tectonic fence that we did in 2019. And what we wanted the objective of the program was to see if there's enough meat here to warrant coming back with a diamond drill. And diamond drilling is much more expensive than RAV drilling, but it's also much more informative. So we wanted to get a sense of grade and scale. And so we think we've achieved that hey, there is high grade gold here. Now, what was a bit perplexing as the results were coming in is that we have this 6 grams over 29 meters, and then we tend to lose it, not entirely, but trying to make sense of where the high grade gold is, because it's showing up somewhat inconsistently. And you have to keep in mind that this is RAB, so we don't have structural data. RAB, when it comes out, for the viewers that don't know, you get rock chips, and literally they're, I think I'm looking for something on my desk to show you, but imagine like the size of a penny or a quarter, or something in that range, or a nickel. So we brought up a microscope. We also brought up a televiewer, which is a tool that you use that magnifies downhole and gives you images so you can get a sense of where the veins. So we were pleased with the results. We were also somewhat taken back that we're like, okay, this is not one homogenized body. And we kind of knew that a bit because we're calling it a damage zone. And what's happened here, this is called a slump rock, and we believe this is this hillside here. It was actually butted up against this, and it was all one unified unit. And then through tectonic activity, pardon the pun, it slumped off. Again, that's also evidence for a low angle feature. So we know this is a damage zone, but so we're getting gold appearing in veins and in structures, and the fluids, are penetrating through sort of the path of least resistance. And so we have a lot of ingredients. I'm trying to think if I answered your question or not. There's grade. What the takeaways from this program is we need to really vector in on where the high grade gold is, because I don't want to be drilling low grade. I want to know where the high grade is. B, there is high grade there. C, there's low angle and high angle interplay here. So before we put a diamond hole there, let's try to take our data set one step higher by doing the geophysical survey to map that out, so we can be more surgical with our diamond drilling campaign. Does that kind of make sense? That I
Yeah. And I just wanted to get a general feel if it helped you define the geologic model that you were expecting at the outset.
Yeah, well, it kind of did. There was only 4 holes into it, right? So you only have so much data to go with, and we believe it's sort of a stockworky vein system that's damaged, and that was further validated by the drilling. And like I said, every hole hit, and we got 275 meters of strike. And if you can, if you can keep the grade up, that strike, you don't need a whole lot more to, depending on the grade, obviously, but it's got the wherewithal. And down in the corner here, we have 980 grams per ton in rock samples and 172. So this area hasn't been glaciated, though. These rock samples didn't fall out of the sky. They came from somewhere. And that's the missing link, I think, with the entire TIBES property, because remember I mentioned that Rubicon data set that encompassed the entire GOODPASTER district. So when you step back and look at that entire district, which is what we're doing now, you got Pogo, and there's not a whole lot of mineralization between Pogo and our property, and all of a sudden it lights up again. So why has Mother Nature decided to, park her hat here, all this high-grade gold, and no one's really been able to, I think, figure out the true plumbing system at TIBES. And I think this year's campaign with the IP, with the soils and the different, you can see that gneissic host rock is all on the west here. And guess what? Pogo's hosted in gneissic rock, but no one has targeted that. So why is that? And so we're getting closer. And I said it's only been like, this is really our first real drill season. I don't really count 4 holes at Michigan as a drill season. So we're getting there, and we're really stepping back and trying to figure out the plumbing system, and that just takes time.
So the assays that are coming out are they're not going to be in this zone, in this TIBES?
No, all the drill assays from TIBES have been reported.
Got it. Okay. And you mentioned there's no glacial till. Is there around the property? So I'm just kind of trying to wonder if the geophysics you're doing, are you doing surface or are you doing downhole? And is that a useful tool for you? Because sometimes I know with a glaciation,
yeah. So there's no glacial till, and it is surface or ground geophysics that we're doing right now. Again, it's sort of a, we elected mostly to do it at Michigan, and Lower Trent. And the reason being is that we now, if we can pick up a signature, we know where the mineralization is in drilling, so we can now marry it to the geophysics. Because if you didn't have the drilling, you just have a geophysical anomaly. But now we have we potentially can have a geophysical anomaly, and if it marries to the mineralization and drilling, I think we're off to the races.
Okay, thanks. I'll hand it over. Stu? Okay.
Thanks for the presentation, Tony. So you're obviously still, you're going to be doing more mapping and whatnot at TIBES. What type of results at 70 Mile or both projects would you think are good to warrant, the diamond drilling for next campaign?
Oh, well, talk about a loaded question.
So, like, to say you're happy to keep continuing going forward, and
yeah,
you mentioned in the last press release that you had a few steps to go before finalizing drill targets for diamond drilling as a follow-up for next round.
So again, we can't control Mother Nature, but we can control the process. Our newly appointed investor relations professional, Bill Stormont, he always says this, and it's been ingrained in me because it's kind of how we operate, which is why I think I'm so aligned with him, is that the process dominates the outcome. And what I can tell you is that, you have a greenstone belt. The primary contact here between the green and the brown, in typical greenstone belts, that's where you want to be. We have soil anomalies, we have top of bedrock anomalies, and then to the right of it, we have high-grade gold in these tension gash veins. Now, does that mean we're going to hit gold in drilling? I have no frigging clue. But that's a pretty sizable anomaly that showed up on a contact. It's a great target to test. And when we speak to other companies or other sort of sophisticated geologists, they would have argued that diamond drilling should have been done earlier. All this, you can make a case to drill all this contact here, because that's your contact with the greenstone belt. So we don't have the wherewithal sort of capital wise to start doing fences of diamond holes. So we're sort of trying to pluck the low hanging fruit. What kind of grade and scale am I looking for? Well, I think if we hit gold, that's obviously a huge plus. It'd be nice to see grade, and it'd be nice to see some widths. But I'm not for certain yet. We don't know yet definitively if that's going to be the case here. When you got 1.34 grams or 44 meters in the last diamond hole drilled in 1997, is that, can we expect something similar on the step out? We're going to find out. Again, I can't promise to our shareholders and potential investors that we're going to hit the same grade and width. But what I can promise you is that this is a damn good target. It's 100 meters away. We did a fence with soils, and then a fence with our geoprobe, our top of bedrock tool, and it came back anomalous. So, I mean, again, it's a first world jurisdiction. You're stepping on along strike. It's a no-brainer target. But Mother Nature, one thing that I can guarantee you that she does is that she always humbles you. But that's a target that I'm excited about. I would expect hopefully a similar grade and similar width. Same thing with flume, and the flume bonanza would be anyone's guess to what we're going to target. Sometimes your best soil anomalies lead to the highest tenor drill results, and sometimes it doesn't. Michigan, believe it or not, the soils are not that great there, but the rock samples are great. Why is that? So you got to be careful when you're blessed with so many targets that you don't start blowing your brains out. I think for us, a win this year would be some high-grade gold, some width, and validation that these contacts are carrying gold. And once we get drill data, I mean, that whether you hit or miss, that's another layer of data. Even the ones that you miss, that's important to know. Sometimes even more important to know, because it shapes how you target, how your surface work, and how you target with future drilling. So, for a first pass drill campaign, I think we'd be doing quite well if we could, hit gold, a little bit of scale, reflective of the pre-existing widths, and a little bit of grade.
Makes sense.
So easier said than done.
Yeah, always is.
Drill and don't end up hitting anything. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the way it goes too.
Yeah. And then on the IP survey, like roughly how much of the concessions did it cover? Percentage-wise, like the IP survey that you've recently completed.
Yeah.
Like on the plan view map, roughly percentage-wise, how much of the project area did you guys cover?
Yeah, so we did IP at Michigan and Lower Trench.
Yeah.
And so the reason why, again, you could do the whole property, but we first want to figure out if IP works. We believe it does because there's sulfide mineralization at Michigan associated with the gold. There was talk and some reports of a deep IP anomaly at Michigan at a 300-meter depth. We don't have that IP data. So we do have some evidence, but we wanted to do do over sample projects, sample zones, and see if it works. And if it does work, then we could step out and apply to the other zones or potentially the entire property.
Fair enough. And then given the increased activity in the precious metal space, but particularly Alaska, with some new entrants there, have you seen any new neighbors come into the area? Grabbing any concessions near any of your projects?
Not near, as far as new players, I'm trying to think, no one specifically new has come into this area, the GOODPASTER district that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Or near 70 Mile is sort of by itself, if you will, at the current moment. One of our other projects, there has been some movement, but not near our properties, no.
Yeah. And then on the relationship with Doyen, presumably everything's all going good. Are they showing you any other projects on their land?
Well, we currently have dialogue on other assets.
Yep.
And, like I said, Kerry Creek and Mount Harper are new assets that were acquired earlier this year. So we do collectively and individually look at other opportunities as well.
Great. Thanks for that, Artie.
So for the TIBES project, you are referring the structurally damaged zones. I'm wondering on this slide, like, what is the extent of it? Can we see the whole extent on this picture?
Well, we believe it's from let me see here. You can't. I don't have a slide here to demonstrate that, but we believe it just carries a little bit further here and down to here. What ends up happening to this damage zone, and that's a good question. And we have another slide on our website that you can look at it more closely, and it's a zoom in of Michigan, Lower Trench, and Wolverine. So what we believe happened, we believe Blue Lead, Michigan, Lower Trench, and Wolverine were all once connected in a north-northeast structure or lineament. And that is over 3 kilometers long. That's actually more if you take into account Blue Lead. And you can see the fabric with the soils and rock anomaly. You can see that the north-northeast trend here, here, and here. So through our mapping and prospecting, and also through geochemistry analysis, these zones all have the same DNA, where the southern portion of the property has a different geochemical signature. And then, as I said, they were all connected at one point, and we have these faulting, this faulting offset fault that happened here and here. And so these were then offset. And so when you say the extent of the damage zone, it actually does carry through to Lower Trench, and we believe at Wolverine. And so our validation came in 2019 when we drilled 0.5/12. That was a brand new drill hole. It drilled in a different manner. And then at Lower Trench, we apply that theory and end up hitting 10.7/3. Now, like Lower Trench is just like, this is just like, like 4 holes. And it was done on a fence to get coverage across that. And one of the holes hit, which is awesome. If I said to you, you're gonna go into a new target and get 10 grams over 3 meters on your first ever campaign in one hole, I'd be pretty happy with that. So now we have to step back. So we did one fence at Lower Trench. It's like, okay, why is there 10 grams there? What's controlling this? What's controlling the grade? Where's the step out? Where's the mineralization heading? And then again, that would be a focus for next year to apply that.
Thank you so much. Campbell?
Sure. Are you solely gold focused, given your name is Tectonic Metals?
Good question. That was in that Tectonic Gold was batted around, but we felt metals was more appropriate, given that we do look at other metals or other commodities. Copper, we're big fans of copper, nickel. We'll dabble in zinc, if you will, but we've yet to hang our hat on another commodity just yet. Sorry, our Northway project is gold and copper. So yeah, we gold's our bailiwick, but we do look at other metals. And one of our geologists actually came from Anglo, so he's a copper porphyry guy by trade.
I think we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please share with us feedback. It'll make its way to Tony. Anything on your mind, we'll put it in front of Tony. And follow Tectonic Metals on LinkedIn. You can follow Amvest as well. And with that, Tony, a closing remark. What are we going to be seeing the next 6-8 months?
Okay, so once again, drill results from 70 Mile, full results from TIBES, IP, geophysical survey results from TIBES, mapping, prospecting, and rock sampling and soil sampling from the other properties as well. There's 3 of them that are coming down the pipeline. There's our contact information. Please reach out. Thank you, Amvest. Thank you, Campbell, in particular, for leading the charge on this webinar. Please, please write in. I'd love to hear your feedback, positive or negative. It might kick me in the gut, but I'm a big boy. I can take it. And it's your comments that shape us and also drive us forward. So thank you again for everyone for your time.
Excellent. Good
Thanks,
day, everyone.
Tony.
Guys,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen. Bye now.
Thanks.